Good afternoon, or if you're listening to this like another day, it could be morning. But welcome to the Senior Living Podcast. We got a special guest. She's got the coolest name ever. She'll probably tell us a little bit about that. But if you have a name like this, you could do anything in life. So, Mary, tell us who you are, what you do, and who you serve, and then we'll get into our podcast.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Pete. I'm excited
I am too.
to be here with your audience. So, my name is Mary Block, and my husband Scott and I own Mobility Plus Alpharetta, and we sell, service, and rent medical equipment.
Mm-hmm. So with that, I mean, I know you're a former teacher. So at
Yep.
what point did you guys decide that one, you're going to give up teaching, and two, that you're going to work together with Scott?
Well, so I loved teaching. I taught in the public school system. I was a Spanish teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I did it for a long time, but I decided a few years ago that I needed a new adventure and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to rewrite my story. At the
Mm-hmm.
time, I was taking care of my dad. My father was a World War II vet, and I took care of him in his last year of life
Mm-hmm.
and was so honored that I was able to do that. But in doing that, I encountered many significant challenges that all caretakers face.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've always loved seniors. So I realized there were real opportunities in this space. And as an educator, I'm always interested in educating people. There was so much that I did not know at the time, and I didn't know where to look for answers. And sometimes I would call, you know, stores, local suppliers, and I just needed information. And I was under a short timeline because at one point my dad was being discharged from the hospital and I needed something. And I felt like, people weren't interested in talking to me unless they were going to sell me something. And so I've experienced many of the same things that our customers face. So when I wanted to make a change from teaching, I decided that I would really love working with seniors. My husband felt the same way. So we'll be open 2 years at the end of August. And I opened the business. I ran it by myself for the first 8 months. And then my husband came on full time, left his corporate marketing job, and we've been working together ever since.
Dang. Oh, I didn't know Scott was a marketing guy.
He
Yeah,
was.
we had a great conversation, and I was like, I should have known that it was that connection to marketing because I geek out on it. So tell me, like those first 8 months, you've left your teaching job,
Mhm.
you worked with your dad, you saw a need out there. What were some of those challenges those first 8 months for our people that are out there thinking, hey, I'm going to get in my own business?
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, there are too many challenges in new small business ownership than we have time for today. But a few key things I think would be to just make the decision. If you've decided that you want to go out on your own and own a small business, commit to the decision you've made and just go for it. And you have to really be unwavering in your resolve. Um, and I think what was exciting for me is I'm old enough that I'm not naive in thinking that the grass is greener necessarily. Every job is going to have significant challenges.
Mhm.
And so I wasn't looking for something that was going to be, magic. I don't think that exists, but I was looking for new challenges that teaching was not offering. And I wanted to solve for some significant issues and gaps that I felt like I was experiencing in teaching. And I wanted to try something new. I think we don't often have the opportunity to reinvent ourselves.
Mhm.
And so, once I think the biggest challenge at the very beginning was we had never owned a business before. And so we looked in what we felt were all the right places for sound advice, um, and found it. And in some ways, we had to dig a little deeper to find the right answers. Um,
Mhm.
but we have a good team of professionals. I think anyone starting out should definitely find a team to start with. You need a solid bookkeeper, one that is
Yeah.
adept at dealing with your specific industry. If you're opening a restaurant, you need a bookkeeper that works with restaurant owners specifically. You need a team of professionals. You need a CPA in addition to your bookkeeper to help guide you with tax implications, and also one that works with small businesses. Those professionals are not universal, their skill sets aren't universal. So that would be the first bit of advice that I would give. Find a team of professionals that have the deal with the specific niche in which you're working.
Do you feel like I'm totally on board with franchises, because I think the failure of businesses that are trying to figure out their systems and their processes a lot of time, and then 50% of marketing works and 50% doesn't. So you look at all these things that are kind of, the market stacks it against you. But when you buy a franchise, you buy a process, you buy a
Mhm.
system. When you guys were looking, what did you like at some time say, well, let's just do it from scratch? Or were you focused on a franchise and the systems that it would bring? What was that like when you were walking through that journey?
We absolutely were focused on a franchise from the beginning, and that was because we were completely new to small business ownership as well as to the senior industry.
Hmm.
So we wanted that support. I think a franchise is invaluable in that we also were very specific in that we wanted a family-owned franchise. We did not want one owned by a large private equity firm,
Hmm.
and we didn't want to feel micromanaged. I think it's a very fine balance to have a corporate franchisor that is highly supportive and knowledgeable of the industry, but also a franchisor that values autonomy. Because at the end of the day, people who move into small business ownership are independent by nature.
Yes.
They are leaving the corporate sector or a bureaucratic system or a nonprofit, for a reason. So it's not that we don't appreciate organization and strategy and balance in a working environment, but I think it can be challenging for corporate franchisors to meet entrepreneurs where they are. You want them to work hard for you. And in order to do that, you have to find a balance and not hold the reins too tight because your franchisees aren't going to like that. So we found a great corporate franchisor, family owned. We have structure, but not too much.
Hmm.
Um, so far, it's been great.
Yeah, I like what you said previously on the building the team. You surround yourself with the best qualified people, and also I do believe too. There's nothing wrong. I'm sure some good private equity companies, but there was something about a family, a well-run family franchise, because you're joining the family, and if they're a family, it's a good connection. So what when you say like they give you, you know, a little bit of leeway to do
Mhm.
your own creativity, give our viewers a little idea what that looks like. Do you have an example that might bring home that point?
Sure. Well, I think for one thing, our corporate franchisor is always interested in franchisee feedback. We have opportunities to provide feedback when new ideas are brought to the table, and it's done in a structured, meaningful way so that it's not just a token act so that franchisees feel heard. They actually, there's a system in place, and then there are deliverables so that they act on the feedback that they've gotten. I really appreciate that. I valued student feedback when I was in the classroom. I
Mm-hmm.
think that we all have opportunities to know more and do better every day. And I think that the most effective leaders put that in action. So I really appreciate that about my franchisor. I think that they take feedback from their franchisee network and take action on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're clear when they need to take a different direction. They're clear in explaining what the obstacle is and not moving forward with an initiative that maybe we've expressed we'd like to see.
Mm-hmm. What was it like? So that first 8 months, you're doing it by yourself, and then Scott joined you. How did you? What was the process like of dividing up the responsibility? Like he's doing this, you're doing that. What was that like?
Mhm. I feel like that's ongoing. So we are always, so as we grow, we are adjusting our systems and processes, creating new ones, figuring out where our own strengths are as business owners. We kind of settled into different roles naturally. On paper, I'm in charge of business development and growth strategy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the reality is in a small business environment, both owners are wearing different hats all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's an ongoing conversation about, what roles we fill. Our business is concretely divided in that there's a service and repair aspect of our business that is significant. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot do that. Like, you don't want me trying to fix your scooter, Pete. That would be a really bad deal. Um,
Hey, I'll take you up on that advice because I want somebody that can definitely keep it moving. And and if there's a problem, I want to go to the best. Okay.
Yeah, so you're not coming to me, but you're going to my husband. So
Yes.
that's an easy thing. Like he manages the back of house crew, like our warehouse delivery guys, our service tech. He does the service himself, but he also collaborates with our full-time tech, takes the lead on training opportunities and things like that. So that was not an issue. We've got that clear segmentation in place. And, I handle more of the administrative HR tasks that need to be done, retail oriented
Mm-hmm.
tasks as well.
That's good. When you were picking and selecting like your bookkeeper, your CPA, and I'm sure there's others, how did you go about that? What was that process like since you're newer to the entrepreneurial,
Mhm.
environment? How did you go about that?
That's a great question because in hindsight, I realized that I kind of thought, contrary to what I had mentioned, people should do when they're doing this for the first time. Before we did this, I thought kind of a bookkeeper is a bookkeeper and a CPA is a CPA and an account, that everyone kind of fills their roles with these universal skill sets. And I realized that wasn't true. So we found the need for a bookkeeper. For example, if you only have a CPA and you don't have a bookkeeper, well, your CPA is going to keep an eye on tax implications mainly. And if your CPA is doing bookkeeping, they're still working with an eye on tax implications. Um, a bookkeeper has a more granular mindset, and it just so happens that our fabulous bookkeeper grew up in a family that owned a small business.
Okay.
So she had a lot of knowledge about, she really is more like a business consultant. She had a lot of knowledge about best practices, high leverage practices, and small business ownership. So she brings a lot more to the table.
Hmm.
Um, we actually are one of her first retail clients, but her experience, with restaurants, um, and with some other small businesses allowed her to craft processes that really worked for us.
It's good. What would you say when you and Scott are talking? How far out are you planning? Are you guys long-term planners or do you plan in quarters? What's that process like for our viewers out there to kind of understand what you do as far as goals and plans?
Well, I think to be most effective, small business owners have to be short term, midterm, and long term planners.
Hmm.
Some of that is, especially when you're new to small business ownership, at the beginning, you don't know what you don't know. So it can be hard to come up with a really effective plan, but you have to figure things out and be agile in order to make it work. So we have short-term goals. We also have longer-term goals that we're working towards. But I'm a planner by nature.
Mm-hmm.
So we definitely operate with the end in mind. Backward design is something that effective teachers use. I used it when I was teaching. You would work from the point of the assessment back to day one of a new unit. And so I feel like that is a great approach in planning for small business as well.
That's good. Do you feel that either you or Scott, what kind of engagement are you having with your other franchisees? Has that been something that y'all have pursued, or give our viewers an idea of that collaboration or mastermind and brainstorming, whatever you want to call it?
Sure. So I think that, there are always opportunities to collaborate. I think there's shared marketing opportunities. And right now, we are the only Mobility Plus in the metro area.
Oh, really?
We are. So there are other mobility equipment dealers and medical equipment dealers. We are the only Mobility Plus in the metro area. There is one in Newnan.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but that's, an hour and a half south of us. So, of course, we protect his territory. But I think when there are franchises that are closer together, then there are real opportunities to collaborate and improve brand recognition and brand awareness, brand reputation. Because I think it's naive to think, we truly believe that all ships rise, and you can't serve everyone. So if someone becomes territorial and sees a colleague in the same franchise moving in and they think, oh, they're going to take my business. Probably not. You probably have, even though you have an overarching philosophy that comes from the corporate franchisor, you might have different pricing philosophies. For example, one may compete on price, the other one may compete more on service. So your ideal customers, your best clients may not be the same people. So I think that it really does always work out best when you find ways to collaborate. And I think some examples of that are, like I said, brand recognition, brand awareness. If two people can be at, say, the Georgia Home Show, because we install stair lifts. So if I were to have a Mobility Plus 20 miles away or something, we might do the Georgia Home Show together, share a table, and divide leads as they come up based on what part of the metro they're in. Because you can't serve everyone. And if you think you can, then you'll quickly realize, by what you're spending in time and gas and casting a net that's too broad, that it's just not effective.
So, yeah, I agree with you on that. So you're in Alpharetta, they're in Newnan. Is the other ones in other states? Like, are they predominantly in the Northeast, Southeast? Where do they have more clusters of Mobility Plus?
So Arizona has a high concentration of stores.
Okay.
Arizona and Florida, obviously, those are two hot destinations for retirees, and hence the higher concentration of stores.
Okay.
The franchise is based out of Chicago. There are no stores in Illinois at this point, but there are stores in Michigan and Indiana, so they're concentrated more in the Midwest. In the South, there are stores in Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, as I mentioned, North Carolina, South Carolina, but we're building out the network. So I think I mentioned there are about 64 franchisees in the network, and we're always looking to expand. Several in Michigan. So
that's good. Are y'all like thinking that as the business grows, you'll expand your territory and your footprint, or is there enough just to go deep into a market? Is that like, are y'all discussing those kind of things?
Sure. I think our perspective has changed. Um, so we own a large part of the metro area as well as Cherokee County.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the idea of opening more stores is less appealing than it once was. Moving into this as first timers, we initially thought that growth meant additional stores.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I'll tell you, Pete, managing people and finding good employees
Yeah.
is a tremendous challenge.
Yeah.
So, and those people make or break your business. I'm not sure that I'm interested in staffing several stores. I'd rather build a strong team here and work from this hub.
Yeah, that I had a person, I won't say the industry, but she had two brick and mortars, and she spoke to our Rotary Club, and she spoke on a topic. It was very she took care of special needs, and she had a coffee shop, she had a gym. And so my thinking when I was just talking to her before the podcast is it's very difficult to scale brick and mortar. I mean, it's just there's two. You might have gone to them because they had one up in Alpharetta. It was called Viva Chicken.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know it will.
they shut down. It's like
Mhm.
I was going there Friday night with some friends. It was my favorite place in Kennesaw, and they had one in Alpharetta. And actually had her on my podcast a long time ago. And I was sending people there left and right. It was the best food. And then gone. And
Yep.
then I called her and I talked to her, and she didn't know. It was like the night before they said, "Hey, we're shutting down both of them because they're company-owned stores." And
Mhm.
the capital it takes to put a brick and mortar in,
Yeah.
it's just intense. And
Mhm.
so they come down here, put two locations in, and I'd go there. I'd see all my friends there eating, and it wasn't like Chick-fil-A, but it was busy. And I
Mhm.
think, you have to have such capital to put into those brick and mortars. Takes so long to build them out. You talking about staffing them. They have to staff them. I mean, this girl, I was talking to her, she goes, I said, I have never seen you before. Yeah, I'm from Charlotte. I go, what are
Mhm.
you doing down here? Oh, we needed help. So
Yeah.
it's like everywhere there's a shortage of labor. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just whether it was COVID or whatever, it's just skilled, people are hard to find. So I do share that, staffing a brick and mortar is no easy task. No
Right.
easy.
And I think too, Pete, it's hard because, we're Scott and I are old school in our approach to things.
Mhm.
We are customer centric, and the people in your building matter, and it's really hard. No one's ever going to care as much for your business as you do, obviously, but you
Mhm.
have to have people who are invested in your mission and your vision and your goal. And so I would rather figure out how to operate with a lean team and work on profitability of my existing business
Yes.
than spend all of, spread my profits so thinly trying to keep another store supported and breathing. So yeah, our perspective has changed. I think that it's really about the team that's in place, and we've got great people. I mean, two of my employees, I have a wonderful retail associate that works part-time. She's a former teacher,
Okay.
and our VA coordinator, because we have a VA contract,
Hmm.
and our VA coordinator is also a former teacher.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
There's a common thread there. Those
Mhm.
teachers make good employees.
Well, absolutely, because in what we do, and every customer that walks through my door
Yeah.
is extremely stressed. They're vulnerable. They're dealing with a new diagnosis of a chronic degenerative disease or an acute medical emergency like a severed Achilles or a broken femur or a twisted ankle, or they're supporting a loved one who's dealing with this.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody that comes through my door is super thrilled about the changes that they're experiencing. So the capacity for empathy is paramount. I mean, that has to be something, and not everyone has that.
Yeah.
Teachers do. Teachers are
Yes.
also detail oriented and
Yes.
really organized. So,
Yes. Oh, I love that. I
mhm,
love that word, organized. Yeah.
yeah,
It's just in business, it's so important
mhm,
because our productivity and our time is, everybody's got 24 hours. Nobody
mhm,
has more. So you have to maximize your production in the hours. And so you're always being organized is so critical to being efficient in how you do things. I love what you said about, when we as I think I'm just going to do a general because my partner's up in Canada and for years we would talk about this is we were be surprised how many people are always trying to get the next new customer, but they forget about their existing. It's like,
yeah,
let me get the next one instead of Mary. She's been with us for 10 years and I haven't talked to her in a year or whatever it is. We call it gold in your backyard because they already know you, like you, trust you, but yet we're trying to take on all this new
mhm,
business. And it's like focus on, like you said, customer centric. If you're really dialed into your customers,
mhm,
they know it and they value you and they're going to be one recommending you. It's just so much better, but we fall into that habit of growth that we think we need another new customer, but
mhm.
that existing customer gets neglected sometimes. So I'm
Right.
glad you said that about, really being drilling down and being customer centric. As we wind down, I want you to tell our viewers, like, I know they're going to I want to get a hold of Mary Block. So how can we do that?
Our store is open, so we have a physical brick and mortar showroom
Okay.
at 4029 McFarland Road. We're right where Atlanta Highway meets McFarland Drive in Alpharetta, but Forsyth County. It's exit 12B off 400. We're open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday, 9 to 1 on Saturdays. No appointment needed.
Mhm.
And we can always, okay, bug is attacking me as I'm talking. What the heck? Um,
Bugs.
you can always call the number at the bottom of the screen. That's our shop. If you have questions, we're happy to answer them. We do house calls. If you need service and repair in your home and cannot get to us, then we can schedule a house call by calling the number at the bottom of the screen. And you can always shoot me an email at that email address, mary.block@mobilityplus.com. If you have questions, or you need other resources. Everybody that comes through my door needs something besides the walker or the hospital bed or the stair lift that they're coming to me for.
Mhm.
And so we refer to our community partners all the time.
Hmm. That is awesome. So for our Spotify people, it's 470-545-1827. And it's mary.block@mobilityplus.com. Is there a dot between mobility and plus?
There is not. I'm glad you
Oh,
caught that. I didn't even notice, Pete.
okay. All right. So, I'm not a detailed person. I'm not a teacher. So, I actually didn't like teachers when I was going to school. So, nothing wrong with teachers, but I grew up dyslexic. So, it was kind of a discombobulated learning experience. So,
Sure.
if you're looking at this, Mobility Plus is together. You can search Mary online too. I did,
Yep.
and they come up right away. So, you can do that. So, Mary, before we leave our viewers, would you share what was the one thing you would want our viewers to take home from this podcast today?
Well, I think the one thing is if you are thinking about opening a small business and making a change, go for it. I am a big fan of calculated risk. I think life is short and you've got to, carpe diem is something that I believe wholeheartedly. So if you want to make a change and you want to do something, then set a goal, put a date on the calendar for when you're going to make that thing happen,
Hmm?
put a team together to help support you in that endeavor and do it.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. We're going to have to get that a mini video out of that tip. That was good. So yes, I totally agree with you. Well, Mary, I want to thank you. This is Friday afternoon if viewers are watching it live, but if you're watching on a replay, Mary took time out on a Friday afternoon. Now, most people are off goofing off, having a good old time. She is here sharing her story. And we want to thank you for being on here on a Friday. And thank you for being a guest on our podcast.
Thanks for having me, Pete. I enjoyed it.
You are welcome. Good to have you on.